Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 123 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, my man. My man.
Always glad to hear it. But, you know, like I've said before, you're a guy that is normally doing well. You don't come in here with a lot of gripes, which I appreciate. You don't come in here with a lot of woe is me.
Because nobody gives a you-know-what.
Because you know I don't care one way or the other.
Yeah.
But no, generally you're just a happy-go-lucky guy. And that's one of the things I really like about you.
Yeah.
You don't bring me down.
I don't bring you down, man. Just don't bring me down.
He ain't heavy. He's my brother.
Don't bring me down, man. Don't bring me down.
So you and I just got back from Chicago.
Separate times.
Separate times. We drove separately.
Yeah.
Because of a thing that came up. But it was a good time.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, not only did we meet a lot of great fans, fans we've never met, fans that we've met at crime cons before.
Yeah.
People came in from all over. I was really surprised. But there were a lot of local Chicago listeners that, you know, were able to just take the train in for the day and come see us. I thought it was very cool.
That was cool. Very cool.
Add on to that there were a lot of podcasters there.
Met a lot of great people.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
People that are really just starting out in the true crime podcast world.
Yeah.
Very cool for them to be able to, you know, have their own table and say, hey, this is us. This is what we're doing. Explain to people what their show is. And then hopefully they'll get some new listeners out of that.
The hotel was cool. The suites were cool.
Well, it was a nice hotel because it was a very expensive hotel.
Yeah.
It was not a cheap hotel.
I mean, I didn't need all that furniture in that suite. And the bar and the 3 TVs.
Did you have a wet bar in yours?
Yeah, by the jacuzzi.
Oh, yeah. You must have got the honeymoon package.
You didn't get that one?
No, huh?
Oh. Yeah. Well, you paid for it.
Well,
You don't know it yet. I used your credit card.
I like you to have the best.
Well, thank you.
So I like you to be happy. I like you
Yeah.
to have the best,
Or I had just a standard room and just,
which everybody knows. I think everybody knows that I did not pay for you to have some fancy honeymoon suite
Yeah.
in downtown Chicago, which would have been $1,200 or
Yeah.
whatever.
I think on this one, you made me dust my wallet off and crack it open.
I did. I think
You
you
know?
cracked it wide open.
Well, I did crack it wide open this trip.
That's tough for you.
It
wasn't
was, but I did it.
All right, man. We had some new Patreon supporters. We had Caitlin Tucker, Sean,
Hey, Caitlin. Hey, Sean.
Caitlin Aruska,
Another Caitlin,
two Caitlin,
but she's a Ruska.
Tristan Hadaway,
Hey, Tristan.
Shanae Miles,
Hey, Shanae.
Josh Hussar.
Who saw what?
I don't know what he saw.
He saw some.
Kylie Lawson,
Hey, Kylie.
Paul, Gemma, another Gemma.
Really? What's going up?
I don't know. We have a lot of Gemmas.
How you doing, Gemma?
And I swear, I think I've already said it, but I don't remember hearing that name until I started watching Sons of Anarchy. Gemma.
Gemma.
I love it. I love that name.
Yeah, you do.
Karen Jones.
Hey, Karen.
Viola Bell.
Hey, Viola.
Alyssa Ballard.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Amanda Parlow.
Hey, Amanda.
Terry Hovde.
Habdi.
Taylor Ragland.
Hey, Raglan.
Elizabeth Fant.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Andrea Felipa Veranda Nunez.
Hey, all that. How are you?
4 names.
Yes, that's a lot.
Super important. Laura.
Hey, Laura.
Abby Anderson.
How you doing, Abby?
Sam.
Hello, Sam.
Therese Thorpe.
Hey, Therese.
Vernon Whitfield.
Hey, Vernon.
Linda Jean Burley.
Hey, Burley.
Christy Nicholson jumped out at our highest
What's
level.
up, Nicholson?
Caitlin Seymour.
Hey, Caden.
And Emily Van Haren.
Emily Van Heron.
Haren, not Halen.
You sure?
Yeah, positive.
Still sounds pretty good.
I knew you were thinking Van Halen. I saw the wheels turning.
Yeah.
Then we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
All right.
This week we selected Ashley Slocky.
Hey, Ashley.
Been with us a long time. We appreciate that.
Appreciate it a lot.
Appreciate the continued support, all the new support we get. We had some great PayPal support as well. Candace Zugic,
Hey, Candace.
Melissa Buell,
Hey, Melissa.
Stephen Wills,
Thanks, Stephen.
and Geraldine Jensen.
Hey, Geraldine.
So amazing, amazing stuff. All right, Gibbs, right now we have an episode out on TCAT. It's on Andre Thomas. This was a very rough episode.
It was extremely rough.
This is one, and we talk about it during the episode, that you might not want to eat through But some people we know don't have a problem with that.
No.
This was particularly rough, the details. And not just the murders that Andre committed, but what he did after he got to jail, what he did after he got to prison. It's like the horrificness doesn't stop with him.
It just increases.
It does.
Yeah, strange levels.
But it's a good episode. Check that out. Now, before we jump into this episode, we did want to let you know that we are taking a break from True Crime All Time Unsolved next week. So no new episode next week, but we'll be back with you the week after that. All right. Are you ready to talk about a little unsolved?
Let's do it.
We're talking about the Robison family murders. You will also see it known as the Good Hart murders because of where the murders took place. We're going back to 1969, and we're in Michigan. The Robison family consisted of 42-year-old Richard, his wife, 40-year-old Shirley, and their 4 children, 8-year-old Susan, 12-year-old Randy, 16-year-old Gary, who was a student at Southfield Lathrop High School, which is near Detroit, and 19-year-old Richie, a student at Eastern Michigan University. This was a family that lived in Detroit. They were doing well. This was a family that was well off.
Yeah, professional family.
It was also a family that was very well respected in their local town of Lathrop Village, which is a nice little place. I remember that. I don't know if I ever went through it, but I remember where it is.
I was going to say, you lived in Detroit for a while.
I did, 3 or 4 years.
You might know that area a little bit better than most.
I'd say I know it better than people that have never lived there. Yeah, let's put it that way.
Yeah, better than me. How about that?
When you lived there for 3 or 4 years, I think you know it a little bit. But this was an all-American type family, right? They went to the theater, they attended church on Sunday, but again, they had some money. The family went on vacations up near the Straits of Mackinac, where they stayed in a cottage on Lake Michigan in Good Hart.
That's a big lake, man. Lake Michigan.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's like a lot of times it's like being on the ocean. I mean, it's you got
they're massive.
Yeah,
massive. Richard owned a very successful ad agency in the Detroit area called R.C. Robinson and Associates. He was also a publisher of a fine arts magazine called Impresario.
I've always wanted to start a magazine.
A fine arts, because I know you're into the fine arts.
Called Opulence or Opulence or.
Are you trying to say opulence?
That's where I was going. Okay. I don't know why I didn't want to come out tonight.
I don't know. Opulence, I wasn't sure what that was.
That'd be a fun one, too. I
thought that's what you said.
Let's make it fun. Let's call it something.
Let's just call it opulence.
Opulence.
And people can try to figure out what the magazine is.
What's it about? What's going to be inside of this magazine? What kind of articles?
You're just showing off your love of the fine arts or the finer things in life.
Exactly.
Let's say that. And it was really during the summer, right, that the family would stay up at this cottage. I mean, Richard had to work, but he would drive up and meet the family throughout the summer. It was on a very hot and humid day, July 22nd, 1968, at a cabin that was next to the cabin where the Robisons were staying. Some local women gathered for their weekly bridge game.
Bridge. You ever play bridge?
I never have. I don't know how to play it.
I don't either.
It looks fascinating.
I don't know the concept.
No, I don't know how to play.
I should learn.
Let's you and I learn together, and then we'll tell the folks in a 2-3 hour episode exactly how to play. They would love that.
The ins and outs of bridge.
It would be thrilling.
By Mike and Gibby.
So these women are, sitting around the dining table for their bridge game, and they all began noticing this very strong, extremely pungent smell every time a breeze wafted through.
Yeah, every time the wind kind of blew through the woods, coming from the direction of the Robinson's cabin, it wasn't a pleasant smell.
And they could tell that's where it was coming from. The women notified the caretaker, and this is a man by the name of Monty Bliss. So Monty went to investigate the odor, and he was able to work the lock loose on the Robisons.
Jimmy did.
Yeah, Jimmy did. On the Robisons' cabin door. There is no way, Gibbs, that this man, this caretaker, was prepared for what he was about ready to find.
No.
No way. Nobody would ever be ready for
No,
this.
I think he was walking up to the place thinking there was a dead animal, like a raccoon, a possum.
Yeah, it's a horrible smell, but I don't think your mind automatically goes to a slaughtered family.
No.
But that's what he finds. Inside the cabin, he sees the entire Robison family murdered. All 6 bodies covered in blood. And the stench was unbearable. There were flies everywhere.
He actually said it looked like a thick wall of flies with so many flies. He couldn't believe how many flies were in the place.
And I'm telling you what, I would have ran out of there like in a Scooby-Doo cartoon. It was so bad, police had to wear gas masks when they were called and entered the cabin. It was that bad.
Can you imagine that you'd have to put on a hazmat gas mask to get into a place like that because how bad it was?
But we mentioned it, right? It's July.
Right.
It's hot. It's humid. Yeah, you're in northern Michigan. You're up in Michigan.
Yeah.
It gets hot in Michigan, just like it does here in Ohio in the summertime.
And we're actually going to find out that whoever did this turned the heat on.
And that was on purpose.
Sure.
To further or accelerate the rate of decay.
Yeah.
So Richard Robison was found face down over an air vent in the hallway. And like you mentioned, Gibbs, the furnace was on during the heat of summer. And from the way he was positioned, this hot air from the furnace was coming up through the vent and it was continuously blowing on his face.
Yeah.
And of course, not just him, it was heating up the whole cabin. An autopsy would later reveal that Richard was shot in the head by a .25 caliber bullet. And that's a caliber that you just don't hear much about today at all.
No, I mean, we did some cases in the 60s and 70s that might have had that.
Yeah, much more common back then. And we are talking about 1968. I don't even think a lot of manufacturers have .25 calibers in their lineup anymore. It's just not something you find today very often.
Just get you a 22 then, huh?
Yeah, I think most people would buy a 22. They might even step up probably to a 308,
yeah,
which is still a relatively small caliber. 12-year-old Randy was found lying on top of his dad as if he had crawled up onto him. He also had been shot in the head. 8-year-old Susie was found lying on her back next to her dad in the hallway. She too had been shot in the head with a .25 caliber. The mom, Shirley, was found right by the door on her stomach, and she had a plaid blanket draped over her upper body. And again, she too had been shot in the head by a .25 caliber bullet. 19-year-old Richard Jr. was found in the northwest bedroom up against the wall with his leg sticking out into the hallway area. He had been shot several times.
Yeah.
In the head with a .25 caliber gun.
Just sitting there leaning up against the wall.
And then you had 16-year-old Gary was found lying on his back along the east wall of the northwest bedroom. He had 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Again, both linked to .25 caliber bullets. So obviously, Gibbs, these are very horrific murders, right? It's essentially a mass murder of an entire family.
Yeah.
The police begin their investigation. And obviously they're going to talk to people around the cabins. The family's been there for quite some time.
Right.
And they're trying to figure out, hey, when is the last time you saw anybody in the Robison family?
Yeah, with 6 people, you think that they would be out and about throughout the day at some point. Summertime, right?
Well, they come to find out that nobody has seen them in a very long time. And through, this type of investigation, police determined that these murders actually took place 27 days before these bodies are found.
It's a long time.
So that would have been June 25th. But you're right. That is a long time. And it's why the decomposition, coupled with the fact that the furnace is on, it's July, it's hot, 27 days in that environment,
No wonder you have so many flies in there.
Yeah, exactly. The police also found some 22 caliber casings outside the cabin. And that's going to turn out to be important later on as we go through the story. But at the time, they had no idea what these casings were from. So the police developed their theory, right? That a shooter was able to gain entry into the cabin, killed this entire family, the Robison family, using a 25 caliber semi-automatic pistol, shooting each person in the head. And even with the advanced decomposition, and it was advanced, we've talked about that, the police could tell that the killer struck both Richard and Susie in the head with a hammer.
That's his little girl, man. This guy, whoever this person was, struck the little girl.
Oh, yeah. This was 8-year-old Susie.
Yeah. So all this is brutal, but for whatever reason, I just can't comprehend him hitting a little girl in the head with a hammer. It just bugs me. Just really bugs me some reason. Because I know how violent that would have to be to do that.
Yeah, it seems strange to say it that way, knowing that these people, including Susie, were shot in the head with a 25. But I think I get what you're saying, right? A hammer it's up close, it's personal, you're holding it, and you're making that decision to bring it down on somebody's head. It seems very violent.
Yeah.
Even though obviously shooting somebody in the head is extremely violent too. I do get what you're saying there.
So they find the blood-soaked hammer at the scene. I just can't imagine seeing that.
The killer had placed Shirley's body in a way to suggest that she had been sexually assaulted, but they figured out that she hadn't been. So it was theorized that this was most likely done to throw the police off during the investigation.
Well, yeah, I could see somebody trying to do that, but luckily the police investigated enough to realize that's not the case.
Well, because why would someone do that? To make it seem as though the focal point of the murders was actually Shirley and the sexual assault of Shirley?
Yeah. And maybe not the real crime at hand.
And that may come into play as we talk about the main suspect in this case. The police also found one set of bloody footprints inside the cabin. So I think that made them fairly confident that they were dealing with only one suspect, right? Only one set of bloody footprints.
Right.
One person carried all of this out. Although that's a lot to kill 6 people in a cabin.
So we're talking about 3 adults, and then their 16-year-old. I mean, if he's anything like how my kids were, my 16-year-old was your size.
Yeah, my size.
So that'd be some pretty good. You'd have to have some pretty good strength to power those people over really fast.
Or you would have to be a good shot, a quick shot.
Very quick shot.
There's a couple of different ways this could happen.
Right.
But I think it's important to talk about. You're essentially talking about 3 adult males inside this cabin.
Yeah.
Most 16-year-olds are close to being adults in the way you think of strength. Like you said, Gibbs, if he was anything like your son or a lot of 16-year-olds, that's somebody that you're going to have to, for a lack of a better term, handle.
Yeah.
In a situation where you are murdering 6 people.
Not an easy feat.
The family was buried on July 26, 1968. At a cemetery in Royal Oak, Michigan. Royal Oak is a very nice place.
I've heard the name before.
Yeah, it's very nice. They have a big, at least I don't know about, I'm sure it was back then, but when I lived in Detroit, Royal Oak was like the place you went to on the weekends. They had great restaurants. It was like an outside kind of scene where you could walk and
kind of the place to be.
Yeah, it was a very nice place. So as their investigation continued, the police started looking into the family. They started looking into Richard's business. They were able to determine that on the morning Richard and the family were killed, he had spoken to his banker on the phone and discovered that a sizable amount of money was removed from his bank account. That's not good for anybody.
No, you don't want to hear that, especially while you're on vacation.
They also found out that Richard called his receptionist at his office, and according to her, he was extremely upset This receptionist said that Richard insisted on talking to Joseph Scolaro, Richard's second in charge at the business. Scolaro was a top executive, very energetic guy. It was said, Gibbs, that he was extremely smooth, like the consummate salesman.
Yeah. He knew how to always be closing.
Yeah, that's perfect. He had that persona. He was a smart guy. He went to Harvard. Now, he didn't graduate, but he went there.
Yeah. I went there for a seminar once. Does that count?
No.
No? Oh.
And you didn't do that either.
A seminar at Harvard, Ohio.
Scolaro was also an Army veteran, and it was known that he was a very good shooter. He was a marksman, sharpshooter. He was a competitive skeet shooter.
So he knew how to handle guns very well.
Yes, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Richard wanted to ask him where the missing funds were and why he moved them. So eventually the receptionist got Joseph Scolaro on the phone. And apparently he and Richard had a massive argument, after which Scolaro left the office around 10:30 a.m. and was gone for approximately 12 hours. Didn't return to his Birmingham home until around 11 p.m. And that's Birmingham, Michigan, obviously not Birmingham, Alabama. I don't want anybody to think.
That's a long commute, man.
Yeah. I didn't want anybody to think that was Alabama. Once the police found this information out, Scolaro was a major person of interest in this case.
Well, what made it worse is that he didn't even have an alibi for the time he was away.
This 12-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and let's keep in mind, this is 12 hours on June 25th, the day that police believed the family was murdered. So in their minds, Scolaro had enough time to drive up to the cabin at Good Hart and back during that time frame. His own wife told police that that night was the first time in over 6 years of marriage that he hadn't come home for dinner, or at least called her to say that he would be late.
Which is strange.
That's very strange. Now, I know for a fact, if back in the day when I did work,
right,
a real job, 5 o'clock comes, 5:36, whatever time I got off,
yep,
my wife's expecting me to be home.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is pretty true in almost every marriage.
Right.
There's going to be dinner, sit around with the family. If you're not going to be there, you better call. You're not going to be missing for 12 hours and miss dinner and miss all of this and just say, yeah, I chose not to call you.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to get away with just being gone for 3 hours.
No. You know my wife.
Yeah.
So now he's a suspect, right? No doubt about it. And then during the second week of the investigation, the Michigan State Police and the Emmett County authorities, they determined that Joseph Scolaro owned the two weapons like the ones they believe were used at the cabin. They confirmed Scolaro owned a .25 caliber Beretta pistol, as well as a .22 caliber AR-7 Armalite semi-automatic rifle.
So basically they're saying he's got the exact same guns, right? They just need to confirm it that they're the exact guns by shooting bullets out of them. Is that how they would do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Ballistically, yeah. Now, right now they know he owns the same caliber. And you're right. They don't, they've got to figure out if these are the exact ones. Now, the .25 we've talked about. Those were used to shoot every family member in the head.
Right.
The .22, we said they found some used casings.
Yep.
Right. Outside the cabin. So they sent the 4 casings from the .22 to the forensics, and forensics compared those 4 and their distinctive markings to casings found at Scolaro's family's firing range. And they were a match. They were an exact match. But they couldn't actually test fire Scolaro's rifle because he told them he didn't have it. He had given it away the previous year.
Just gave it away.
I just gave it to somebody.
They look like they needed it.
Because I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
The problem with that is a neighbor of his told police, you know what? I saw him with that .22 caliber rifle just before the Robisons were killed. There's a little discrepancy there.
Yeah.
Police went as far as dragging parts of Lake Michigan with magnets to try to recover a gun, but they didn't find anything. That is a feat, man. You're not talking about dragging a little small family pond.
No.
You're talking about Lake Michigan.
That would be a chore and a half for sure. Who knows? We know what they didn't find. I want to know what they did find, because they found some stuff.
All right, Gibbs, let's take a quick break to talk about a new sponsor, Native. Native creates safe, simple, and effective products so you can use in the bathroom every day. And their products are filled with ingredients found in nature, like coconut oil, shea butter, and tapioca starch. That means no aluminum, parabens, or talc. And they really work. Native's deodorants can hang with your workouts, your busy life, even a monstrous 16-hour day, which a lot of us have. Native comes in a wide variety of enticing scents for men and women, and they offer unscented formulas and baking soda-free formulas for those with sensitivities. There's no risk to try because Native offers free returns and exchanges in the U.S. And if you subscribe, you'll save $2 per stick and have Native conveniently delivered to your door every 1, 2, 3, or 4 months, whatever you want. Now, I've been using Native, and I like the eucalyptus and mint. It smells good, and it does what you need a deodorant to do. And really, that's the bottom line, right? It has to work. For 20% off your first purchase, visit nativedeodorant.com and use our promo code TCAT during checkout. That's nativedeodorant.com, promo code TCAT for 20% off your first purchase. And next up is BetterHelp. BetterHelp offers licensed professional counselors who are specialized in a wide array of issues: depression, anxiety, grief, self-esteem, so much more. BetterHelp is there for you if there's anything interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals. Connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. Get help at your own time and at your own pace. Anything you share is confidential, and it's extremely convenient. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions. They also have chat and text options with your therapist. And if for any reason you're not happy with your counselor, you can request a new one at any time for no additional charge. And best of all, this is a truly affordable option. Our listeners get 10% off their first month with the discount code TCAT. So why not get started today? Go to betterhelp.com/TCAT. Just fill out a quick questionnaire that allows them to assess your needs, but it also helps them match you with a counselor you will love. That's betterhelp.com/TCAT. The police were able to determine that Scolaro bought 225 caliber Berettas on February 2nd, 1968. But strangely, Scolaro only had one of the Berettas. The other one, again, he said he had given away.
He just bought it that year.
Right. What, 5 months prior to the murders.
Yeah.
He bought 2 Berettas, gave one away prior to the murders. This is what he said. This guy likes to give guns away, apparently.
Yeah.
He's very charitable.
Yeah. Here, take my gun. I don't
need it.
Yeah.
Now, the one that he did have didn't match. But obviously, if you're a killer, you don't worry about getting rid of the one that doesn't match.
No, you got to get rid of the one that could, implicate you.
Sure. But here's one thing I found very interesting, and it's around the 25 caliber casings that police found at the crime scene. They were able to figure out that these were pretty rare or limited.
Limited. Yeah, I like that.
I'll say that. They were made by a Finnish company and were only available in Michigan during January and February of 1968. I don't know how they figured all that out, but that's kind of incredible. These weren't Remington. They weren't Winchester. They weren't, a brand of ammo that you could buy anywhere in the country.
Right.
These were made by a Finnish company.
Very specialized.
Yeah. I think they were called Sako. Sako.
Sako.
And police were able to figure out and get proof that Joseph Scolaro was one of however many Michigan residents that purchased this Sako brand ammunition. Things are not looking good for this guy.
No.
He's got a lot of things mounting against him.
Especially when you say, when you catch anybody, even a kid, you're like, I know you did it. I didn't do it. I don't have it. It's been thrown away. I don't have it. You can't prove it. It's like he's doing with the guns. I don't have the guns.
Why do you have all that chocolate over your face then?
Yeah, why do you have all that chocolate?
Threw away the chocolate bar wrapper, but that chocolate on your face is giving you away.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just the other day with you and me, you know?
No, I'm talking about you right now.
Oh, yeah, that too, yeah.
So I can't emphasize enough how big police are on Joseph Scolaro at this point. You know, they're gathering all this information, and all of it is leading them to him as the prime suspect in these murders.
Yeah, I mean, things don't look good. Things are going to continue to look worse for him. They just are.
Well, he takes some polygraph tests and he fails. Not one, but two.
Yeah.
And then he took a third to try to prove that he was innocent. That one came back inconclusive.
But, you know, he was trying to trick the testers. And the testers caught on to him that during the pre-testing, he was purposely trying to trick them. And I guess they could tell this. I don't know how they tell this. I guess they could tell that he was giving fake answers.
He's trying to cheat the polygraph.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
So, I mean, they were onto it.
Well, I'm pretty sure if you do that day in and day out,
Yeah.
Maybe without even looking at the polygraph, just
Without
by
seeing
looking
the little
at
needle
somebody.
bouncing around. Yeah.
Police also determined through some forensic accounting that Scolaro had more than $60,000 in funds that were not accounted for in two of Richard's corporate accounts that he had either moved or stolen. That's what they figured.
I mean, 68, that's a lot of money, man.
That is a ton of money. What would that be today?
Oh, that's
People,
easy.
people.
$375,000.
All right. I like it. I'll go with it. I have no idea. Something else that they figured out, the police did, was that really Joseph Scolaro was one of the very few people who knew where Richard and his family were or how to find this cabin.
Yeah, because they kept it pretty private. And, some of the research I found is that, Scolaro a few times had to go up to the cabin to get some things signed by Richard. And that's the only reason he knew where it was at.
Yeah, it wasn't like they're broadcasting, hey, we got this cabin and
Right.
this is where it's at and here's the address. So it was reported that Scolaro knew about an insurance policy that Richard took out to help the business. And this was basically, if anything happened to him, this policy would help the business. But it would also help Joseph Scolaro. He would take over.
Yeah.
So ipso facto, it would help him.
So it'd be the business's money, but as the new guy running the business, he can simply siphon it off.
Which it sounds like apparently he was already doing to the tune of, at least $60,000 that the police were aware of. So at this point, investigators made the decision to exhume the bodies. They wanted to take another look for any evidence that might have been missed. And it's a good thing they did because they found a .22 caliber bullet in Richard's chest that was missed during the first autopsy. So we're tying everything back in, right? They found 4 .22 casings. Now they know that Richard was shot with a .22.
Yeah.
And they believe that was actually the fatal shot.
So it also helps trying to piece how it all came down, right? If he was shot initially from outside, that's one less person that the intruder, the killer, has to battle inside the home, right? Now he just has to worry about the wife and the oldest son, and maybe the second oldest son. Definitely helping the situation out if you're good with a handgun. So by finding that in his chest, that kind of brings the whole picture together, right? Because now they know they had the shells on the outside. They also knew the window was broken, but they really didn't know how to piece that together. But now you can see with the shells on the outside, the window broken.
Yeah, I agree. I think this second autopsy and the finding of this bullet in Richard's chest, it really helped them, piece some more things together.
Oh, yeah.
Things that they were probably a little bit unsure about. So investigators took all this evidence, the guns, the missing funds, the fact that Scolaro didn't have an alibi for that 12-hour period. They took it all to the local prosecutor on December 17th, 1969. So this is almost a year and a half, right? It's basically a year and a half after the family was murdered. And it was their theory that Joseph Scolaro committed theft. He stole this money and he killed the Robison family to cover it up.
It's one of those things, when you go too far, maybe you take some petty cash. Next thing you know, you're taking some account money, moving it around. Before you know it, you're in too deep. And then what are you going to do?
Yeah, I've seen that before. If you ever see it on the news, sometimes like a local treasurer will get busted for embezzlement. And I always wonder, do they not think they're going to get caught?
Yeah.
Do these people not think that at some point somebody's going to do some accounting and figure out that? I think I remember one, and this was local, like a local treasurer over the years had stolen $1 million.
Yeah.
And had bought a house and had bought cars and all of these things. You just wonder what is going through these people's minds. Are they really thinking they're going to get away with this long term?
Yeah.
Because that seems foolish.
Clearly they do.
Yeah, they must, or they wouldn't do it, I guess.
Eventually they will be found. So if you're out there skimming off the top,
Stop.
yeah, it's going to come back and get you.
So the prosecutor in Emmett County at the time, it was a man by the name of Donald Noggle.
Strange fact about that is that he got that job by being a write-in during the election.
Apparently nobody else wanted the job,
No.
which seems strange, but
Yeah. So he was a write-in and he got it.
in February of 1970, Noggle made the decision not to charge Joseph Scolaro at that time. And he gave some reasons for it. Right? He didn't have fingerprints putting Scolaro at the scene of the murders. He didn't have either of the murder weapons.
Yeah. So on the surface, that sounds kind of believable, right? I mean,
Sure. There's some doubt in his mind, possibly that he can win at trial. Maybe. That sounds plausible.
Yeah. But you were going to dive into a few other things here that came up, and it's just the reality of taking a case to trial. There's more decisions to be made besides the fact, what do we have against the person we want to try? There's just more things the county has to consider, and they make this decision based off of those factors.
No, you're right. There are a lot of decisions that go into whether or not to prosecute someone. Now, let's keep in mind, we're talking about what I believe is a fairly small county, right? Emmett County. We're not talking about Wayne County, where Detroit is.
Right.
That would maybe be a different decision, or, a big county that has a budget.
Yeah, Wayne, Oakland, something
Sure.
like that, yeah.
Because it would come out later that both Noggle and the county board, they had meetings about this case and talked especially about the cost that would be associated with it. They figured the case could go 6 months or more and possibly cost the county hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe going into $1 million.
Yeah, which is, as far as your budget goes, it would crush your county budget.
Yeah, this was not a county that was structured for that type of case, especially missing a couple of items that they would like to have. They didn't feel like it was a slam dunk, surefire, solid case.
And really, Noggle really wasn't a top-notch prosecutor when it came to murder, right?
Well, he was a write-in vote. My assumption is he didn't have a plethora of murder trial experience.
So that's another factor to lay out there.
So, in the end, Gibbs, really, they felt like it was too big of a risk. It was going to be too costly of a risk to take this guy to trial. Now, a few years later in 1973, a new chief prosecutor was elected in Oakland County, a guy by the name of L. Brooks Patterson. Patterson came out to the press and said he believed firmly that the Robison mass murder originated first within his jurisdiction. And based on that, he was going to reopen the case and the prosecution, and he was going to bring charges against Joseph Scolaro.
It's a pretty bold statement.
It is.
Clearly, he felt strong that he had a good case.
Well, and I think he probably felt, not to put words in his mouth, but he probably felt that it was an injustice.
Yeah.
Right? That this family had been murdered. They had all this evidence against this guy. They believed he did it, but yet nobody was willing to bring him to trial.
Right.
But what happened as a result of this? right? Scolaro's back in the news as police's number one suspect. He's most likely going to be charged with the 6 murders, and he's hearing this, right? This is not a secret. This was out in the open, and he decided to take his own life. He shot himself in the head with a Beretta pistol. And Scolaro left a note that read, "I am a liar and a cheat and a phony." And in this note, he listed all the people that he had swindled over the years in business schemes. There was another handwritten note to his mother on this same sheet of paper that said, "I had nothing to do with the Robisons. I am a liar, but not a murderer. I'm sick and scared. God and everyone, please forgive me." He also apparently apologized to his mother for forging her name on some bad checks.
Hey, Mom, by the way, P.S.
Feel bad about that.
I feel bad about doing that to your bank account.
And this is the problem with this case, right? Because they didn't charge Scolaro, years earlier when they had the chance. Now, you don't know if he was charged. Maybe he would have taken his own life back then. We don't know that part. But this is why this case remains unsolved. Michigan state law won't let the case be closed, even, with the suicide of the prime suspect. So the case just sits in an inactive status. Now, there are some reports out there that say the case is still open because there are investigators that feel Scolaro had a second person helping him that day.
And I think, you can look at this case and say plausible.
Plausible based on the fact that we said, there's a lot of people, 6 people to shoot.
Yeah.
In a confined space all at one time is a lot for one person. It can be done.
It definitely can be done.
It especially can be done by a skilled marksman,
Exactly.
which we know Scolaro was.
Right.
But like you said, it's plausible that a second person could have been involved. You also have 2 different guns. And a lot of times that leads people to believe it's two different people.
Yeah. Somebody outside shooting the rifle, somebody else coming through the door with the handgun.
With the 25.
Yeah.
But this is a case that, people are still trying to figure out all of the pieces, what actually occurred. I will say most people, I think Gibbs, believe that it was Joseph Scolaro. And that's why, to me, this is about as close as an unsolved case gets to being a solved case without it actually being considered solved and closed.
Right.
Joseph Scolaro was not proven in a court of law to have killed the Robison family.
Yeah.
So you can't say he did it for certain. But there's so much evidence that points to him that most people believe he did. On one of the anniversaries of this case, and I don't know what year it was, Gibbs, but there was a forum where, the investigators, the prosecutors, a lot of the people that were involved in this case at some point in their career, they got together and talked it over, talked it through. And essentially all of these people felt that the case was solved because the evidence was just so strong against Scolaro. Even without the murder weapons, without any fingerprints, they all believed that if they could have gotten him to trial, he would have been convicted.
Yeah. They were very confident.
Yeah, that was their consensus. Now, the one thing that we do know is this was an outstanding family. Richard and his wife, Shirley, as well as the 4 kids. I mean, they were deeply loved and they were very well respected in their community. After the murders, the cabin had to be demolished. Once the investigation was completed, it was said that the floors were so stained with blood and the smell was so bad.
They just could never get it out of
No,
it.
they just couldn't get it out. It didn't matter what they did.
Yeah.
27 days is a very long time. I don't know if you've ever had a freezer go out or anything like that. We had one that went out, and in our basement, we didn't know it went out for probably 20, 30 days.
Man.
And then all of a sudden we started smelling something and we figured out it was the freezer. And man, those are shut pretty tight.
Sure.
We opened that up.
Big mistake.
Oh my gosh. we just threw the whole thing away. Had to. I tried to scrub it. It didn't matter what I did.
It was done.
And the whole basement smelled for quite a long period of time.
It's the worst smell, man.
This was before you and I started taping, so you never got that part.
Yeah. There's been some in your previous and my current roles when we used to go do inspections on certain places.
Oh, yeah.
You'd walk in and you thought for sure somebody might have died in the
Well,
place.
and we had some where people did die.
Actually did die.
Yeah. And nobody knew about it.
No.
These were people that didn't have family. Nobody was checking up on them. It was pretty bad.
It was a surprise for our inspector.
And you also had the people that would go to the cabin just to see it.
Oh, yeah. You had the...
I call them the looky-loos.
The looky-loos.
You have that in any situation.
Sure you do.
And this was a big case.
Yeah.
6 members of a prominent family murdered. So, I mean, for that fact alone, even without the smell and the blood stains, most likely this cabin would have had to have been demolished anyway.
Probably so.
What they were left with was a lakefront lot that, according to records, sold just a few years ago for like $425,000.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty prime piece of real estate.
Guess enough time has passed now, right? Somebody can build something on it. And
yeah, I think eventually, you could rebuild something completely different on it.
I know I'd be burning a lot of sage
But I can tell you one thing for sure. My kids wouldn't stay there.
No.
I mean, I don't care if you built a brand new house.
Once they heard what happened there,
They wouldn't
be there.
Knowing that it just happened even on that lot, they wouldn't stay there. So I think, like with a lot of unsolved cases, Gibbs, there have been a lot of stories, theories over the years that people put forward. Some interesting, some really maybe not that plausible. One was that it could have possibly been John Norman Collins, serial killer that, killed around the Ann Arbor area in 1969. The timing works out, right? It's a year apart.
Right.
But Collins was like a co-ed killer, right? He targeted young college-aged females. Doesn't really make sense that he would kill a family of 6.
No, it doesn't really line up.
Then in 1970, the Michigan State Police received a letter from a prisoner in Leavenworth stating that he knew who the real killer was. And police investigated it, but nothing added up. It was kind of a dead end.
And we know we've heard how prisoners do that sometimes.
Well, sure.
Try
what
to make a
else do they
deal.
have to do?
Let's make a deal.
They have all day to sit and think of things to do.
Can I have a pack of cigarettes so I can tell you what deal I want to make?
Yeah, and a Dr. Pepper. They might do it for just a Dr. Pepper.
Right, Diet Dr. Pepper.
There were other stories that Richard owed the mafia some money and that maybe the cabin's caretaker was involved with the mafia and he was in this, into this thing somehow. There was some talk about the fact that he kind of acted strange after the murders, but he also discovered 6 dead bodies.
That's what I was thinking.
Let's not forget that.
I would be not acting. I wouldn't be like, all right, I'm going to go grab some lunch now and head on down.
You're not going to be yourself for quite a while, I think, and maybe ever. I don't know. You're not going to be the same after you discover a whole family massacred that have been laying there for 27 days.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I got to get going. I got a date tonight. I'd like to stay around and talk about this, but I got to go. No, you're going to go home and just
think about that and nothing else, probably.
Yeah.
It's like that with a lot of these big unsolved cases. You have a lot of people claiming to have information or know, who committed these crimes, but none of their information ever pans out. They don't know any details of the case, really.
There's a lot of
kind of how it happens.
A lot of fraud wrapped around crime, man.
Sure.
People saying they talked to this person or knew this fact.
Yeah, I just think you're always going to have that. But that's it. That's the case of the Robison family murders. This one was interesting to me, Gibbs, on a number of different levels. But I think mainly because it is generally viewed as pretty much a solved case, even though technically it's not.
No, you're right.
And we don't get a lot of those.
No. Sometimes we get the cases where they take somebody to trial and then they get out of jail, 10 years later.
Exonerations. Yeah, we get those.
So, yeah, but we've had a few cases that might get close to that. But like you said, you're right. Nothing's going to compare to this. It's just really not going to compare to this at all.
Yeah, normally you don't have this much evidence. You have theories, you have innuendo, you have people thinking it was this person or that person.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you have this much evidence against somebody who is not prosecuted. And now you can't, now you can't really go after them. So, But that's it. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
We love voicemails.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, this is Kira from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I just wanted to thank you guys for such an awesome podcast. I listen all the time, every week, and I just wanted to thank you guys for everything you've done. You guys really helped me get through this year. I dealt with a lot of hardships and trauma, and you guys honestly really helped me cope with everything and get through it. I got so addicted to binging your podcast that I couldn't really fall asleep at night without listening to it, and then I'd get mad at myself because I'd miss some parts and I'd have to rewind it. But yeah, I binged both Unsolved and TCAT and became a Patreon supporter. I really love you guys. You do an awesome job, and you don't even compare to the other podcasts. Like, everyone is subpar compared to you guys. You're the best. So yeah, keep it up, and I'm a big fan. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Wow, that's awesome. We appreciate that so much.
Actually, really pretty amazing, man.
Yeah. I think you and I have talked about this before. There's a lot of things that we never thought about when we started the podcast. One of the things for sure was that we would ever help anyone with this podcast.
No.
And we hear all the time that, people are going through a hard time, a rough patch.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, listening to the podcast, whatever it is, helps them get through it. And that makes me feel amazing.
Sure. Yeah, me too, man.
So we appreciate that.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. I'm just calling because I'm listening right now to your case, Kirsty Bentley, and I have something to say about you talking about the First 48, the TV show where they look at murders in the first 48 hours, and wanted to clarify that it's not about missing person. It's if they don't get a tip on the homicide in the first 48 hours, then the case goes cold. You had stated that it was...
Oh, that one ended kind of strangely. I hope he's all right. But the reason I wanted to play that is because I said that.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. So I have to take ownership of that. I was confusing the first 48, which is really only about murders.
Right.
And I was talking about it in missing person cases, which is totally wrong. I caught a lot of flack for that, which I always do when I'm wrong.
Yeah, but you always, if you're not right, you
say
I'm not right.
I have to stand up. Now, what would have been great is if you would have caught that while we were recording and said, hey, you're wrong. Don't say that.
What I did know was he was going to call you out. So the reason you hear him go offline like that is I was there. I just didn't get him ahead of time.
So I don't know if you do that to me on purpose and you just like, oh, Fergie's wrong. And I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let him keep going.
I would never.
Or, and this is what I truly believe, you're not paying attention when I talk. That's what I truly
I pay
believe.
Attention unless I was on my phone.
It's sometimes you're on your phone.
Was I on my phone? I'm hardly
know.
ever. I'm not on my phone that much.
That's bull.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Amy from Salt Lake City. I'm a huge fan. Been listening. I've binged all of your shows already. I just listened to a voicemail from someone in Salt Lake about fry sauce, and I had to call in. So I'm from Utah, and I looked it up, and I've got to read you this. Although sauce composed of a mixture of equal parts ketchup and mayonnaise appears in a New Orleans cookbook published in 1900, fry sauce was originally popularized in the United States by a chef named Don Carlos Edwards, who served it in his first restaurant, Don Carlos Barbecue in Salt Lake City, which eventually became the Utah-based restaurant chain Arctic Circle. So, just so you know, all of us from Utah, we could never get fry sauce anywhere if we went out of town unless we went to Arctic Circle. And everyone in Utah knows what it is. And it is ketchup, mayonnaise, but the secret ingredient is pickle juice. Just wanted to give you a heads up there. So that's the Utah fry sauce, is with the pickle juice. And let's see, team both of you, and keep your own time ticking.
This fry sauce thing has created quite a controversy.
It has, because I still get emails from people from Idaho that says, So
right. There's people from Idaho that are trying to claim it still.
I think what we need to happen is someone from Utah needs to send us some fry sauce. Somebody from Idaho needs to send us some fry sauce, and we do a little taste test right here in the studio and just let you know which one we think is better.
What cracks me up is every place that I go has fry sauce.
Yeah.
And Ohio, you and I were in Texas. They had some fry.
They did.
Every chain or every place seems to have fry sauce. But to me, it's not mayonnaise and ketchup. It seems to be, and not even pickle juice. It seems to be much more than that.
I think more ingredients are added for sure.
I like it. I don't know if
Yeah.
I've ever had one that's just ketchup and mayonnaise.
I'll tell you what was good was that Shake hamburger that had the
Oh, Shake Shack?
Shake
Oh
Shack
my
sauce
gosh.
on it. Yeah,
That was
Shake
good.
Shack. That was good, man.
I liked it.
Hey, Ferg and Gibby, just wanted to say thank you very much for all the hard work you guys do. I just recently started getting into your podcast, and I'm totally in love with it. Trying to catch up on all the previous podcasts, along with the Unsolved, and have also gotten into the criminology. You guys just keep up the great work and just, keep them coming. I just wanted to make a request. I think it would be awesome if you guys did the trial, or at least the murder case around the O.J. Simpson case, along with Albert Fish. Couldn't find anyone or any of those on the podcast, unless I'm missing something inadvertently. But just wanted to mention that to you guys. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. And you guys keep up the great work. By the way, my name is Dylan from Virginia. Thank you, guys.
All right, Dylan from Virginia.
Yeah,
I bet you they got fry sauce in Virginia.
they probably do. Fry sauce everywhere.
So I will say this. Both of those are on the list. Albert Fish, we get a ton of requests
We
for
do.
Albert Fish, and
We
I know
really
we're
do.
going to have to do that one. OJ, I've always been fascinated by OJ. The problem is that's such a big case.
It is.
I think to tell it correctly, it would take a massive number of episodes, more episodes than we've ever done. I think the most we've ever done on a single case is 3. I don't know how you could tell the full OJ story in 3 episodes. You just can't do it.
No, I did hear her mom's got a pretty good podcast out right now about the case.
Yeah. I think I saw that too.
Yeah,
Which is probably really interesting. I mean, it's almost a case that you could devote a whole podcast to
Oh, I think so.
for some very extended period of time.
Yeah,
All right. That's it. You got anything else?
that's it, man.
All right. So that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So from Mike,
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Hey, TCAT fans, don't forget about BetterHelp. No matter what struggles you're facing, from depression and anxiety to trauma and grief, BetterHelp can connect you with a professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. You can do secure video or phone sessions, as well as chat and text with your therapist. Anything you share is confidential. Best of all, it's a truly affordable option. TCAT Unsolved listeners get 10% off your first month with the discount code TCAT. So why not get started? Go to betterhelp.com/TCAT and fill out a questionnaire to get matched with a counselor you'll love today.